All right, so most of the buzz for me yesterday was the Andre Berto Victor Ortiz rematch. I thought that was a pretty good fight. The whole card on PBC on Fox was awesome, as I said in my earlier video. But the Showtime card wasn't that bad either. And I didn't make a recap last night, but I want to get into these two fights today because there's a lot of controversy in both fights. And there's a lot of people saying certain things, and whether you agree with those things or not, an argument can be made for either side, basically, except for the Badu Jack Lucien Butte fight. I thought that was clearly a bad decision, but a lot of the focus right now is going on James DeGale and Roger Medina, or Rogelio Medina, excuse me, if you want to pronounce it the Hispanic Hispanic way. Now, to be honest with you, I did score this fight for DeGale. I thought he won narrowly, but a lot of people are saying that Medina won, and an argument could be made for that. But I don't think either fighter really made a statement in terms of saying, I clearly, decisively won this fight. I'm not going to make excuses for James DeGale, but we saw James DeGale in spots really look fluid, slick, smooth, and very calculated in there. But to me, it looked as though he was trying to be a little too flashy in there. He was clowning around. And I think he underestimated Medina. Medina is a very, very crafty, skilled fighter. And he said that his hero was Juan Manuel Marquez. And I can understand why, because there are similar things that he does. He's not that calculated counterpuncher that Marquez is, but one thing he does do well is cut off the ring like Juan Manuel Marquez did. And he doesn't do it because he's exceptionally fast, but he does it because he's cutting off the angles for his opponent to escape. So he's cutting off that escape route, and he's anticipating the movement of his opponent, and he did so very well against James DeGale last night. So James DeGale, at points was trying to use the ring, but Medina was relentless, and he would keep cutting him off at the pass, not giving him that angle, not allowing him to turn him. So a lot of that is just not moving straight in, but he came in at an angle, anticipated that DeGale was going to be trying to circle, and before he could circle and get around and turn Medina, Medina was already there. Basically from timing and basically from anticipation and reading his opponent and thinking a couple steps ahead, like Marquez does very well. But to me, when I was watching this fight, it really was all about what you liked. If you liked the flashy punches, the cleaner head-snapping punches, then you may have went with DeGale. But if you liked the grittiness and the hard work and the constant pressure and forward movement of Medina, then obviously you were going to go with that. And, a lot of body punches weren't landed. And unfortunately, sometimes judges don't always reward the body punches. And I think that's a travesty. But I also thought that James DeGale was very effective with his uppercut. I thought he was very effective with his uppercut. And when he was switching up from southpaw to orthodox to southpaw, when he kept Medina a little bit off balance by doing that, I thought he had some success there. But I thought when he was on the ropes, to me it looked as though he was just trying to clown Medina, try to make him miss and stick his tongue out, instead of really taking this fight. I'm not going to say he didn't take the fight seriously, but he really thought that he could go in there and embarrass Medina. Sort of like what Sugar Ray Leonard did against Roberto Duran in the second fight. That was the type of approach I think he took. I think he was thinking too much of getting in Medina's head, playing games with Medina, but Medina wasn't here. He didn't get the memo. He didn't come here to lay down last night. He wanted to win this fight. I'm not saying James DeGale didn't, but I think he was playing around, clowning, and I think he made this fight much harder on himself than he had to, and this is why we had this controversy the following day and right after the fight. Now, the Badu Jack fight, I thought was a very solid performance for Badu Jack. You hear people say over and over again how important the jab is in boxing. The most important punch in boxing is the jab. And Badu Jack basically exemplified that last night. The jab was everything for Badu Jack. It really frustrated Lucien Butte. He was constantly touching him. He was doubling and tripling it up, and he was changing up, the rhythm of it. He wasn't just throwing it as a rangefinder. He would, give him a couple touch jabs, then he would give him a real hard jab to keep him off balance and not let him get untracked. And you have to do things like that to keep a counterpuncher like Lucien Bute off balance. And not only that, he kept him occupied upstairs with the jab, which opened up the body shots. And he was really smooth and fluid last night. Everything came off very sharp and crisp. So he was landing quality shots, and everything, as I said, came off that jab. And the body work was very impressive, and it slowed Lucien Bute down. But as Paulie Malignaggi and Al Bernstein mentioned, Lucien Bute comes on late in fights, increases his punch volume. And I think that because of a lot of the work that Badou Jack did early on, although he wasn't throwing a ton of punches, but he was throwing some hard shots inside, and I think he started fading a little bit. And, the jab wasn't coming out as sharp and crisply. He wasn't throwing it as much as he did earlier in the fight. And that's where I think Lucien Bute took advantage of it, because he had a little bit of time to get his offense untracked. He had time to react because he wasn't being preoccupied with a jab, steady in his face, steady touching him on the stomach, steady touching him on the chest, shoulders, whatever. Badou Jack started lowering his punch output, and that's when Lucien Bute was able to pick up on his attacks, catch the rhythm a little bit, and get a read on Badou Jack, because there wasn't that 2 or 3 jabs coming at him. There was maybe just that 1 jab at a time. So it's easier to pick up on just having to deal with a 1 jab at a time, slipping it and being able to counter. And he was very effective with that left hand later in the fight. Landed some good uppercuts to the body as well as the head. And that's a hard punch to land to the body, an uppercut, because a lot of fighters don't throw uppercuts to the body. And Lucien Bute has that surprise element when he throws that punch, because a lot of fighters aren't expecting it. So I gave Lucien Bute 4 rounds in this fight. I found it very hard to give him more than 4 rounds in this fight. I thought Badou Jack was dominating this fight, but I did give Lucien Bute the 10th, 11th, and 12th rounds. And although he closed strong, I don't think he had enough rounds in the bank to even claim getting a draw. I thought that was a bad decision. I thought that Lucien Bute was competitive in this fight, but just because you're competitive doesn't mean that you're effective. And I thought Badou Jack clearly deserved a decision in this fight. This was a 116, 112 fight at best. You know what I'm saying? At worst, maybe a 117, 111. I just thought that this fight clearly showed that Badou Jack was the more effective fighter. So I thought all around we had great cards yesterday. It was a solid weekend of boxing. But as always, more often than not, we can't go without having some controversy. And we definitely got a little bit of it yesterday. All right, till next time, Habeeb is out. Talk to y'all soon. And as always, thank you for watching.